You guys caught me in mid-sip. All right, good evening. Okay, guys, I am using a beautiful new microphone that was gifted to me by my team. Isn't that pretty? Looks like a Larry King Live microphone for Christmas. So you'll have to let me know if you can hear. And using a new webcam that was also gifted to me by my amazing team. So you guys will have to give me your input and tell me what you think about that. All right, guys, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to jump on board. Lots of fun stuff to talk about this evening. Had a great show this morning. A lot of you came to that great first to the show this morning. Hey, Eric, glad to see you. A lot of you came to the morning show that I've been doing since December. By the way, those of you who are watching the replay right now, please hit replay in the comments section. I always like to go back and review to see who's watching the replay and also if there's any questions from the folks watching the replay. Hey, Glenda. Hey, Ashley. We got Marianne on board. Marianne was there this morning for the morning show. So super excited. Oh, Eric, I am so excited. That is going to be a really good time. I am so excited about doing that. Jody, what's going on? Oh, you're home now. Okay, awesome. So glad that you're home now, Jody. Please send me an update when you have a moment. Cheers. I needed this. Today it was like hot chocolate with the whipped cream. It was a good day, but it was busy day. Hey, Bonnie, you're here. Connie. Oh, happy belated birthday to you, Connie. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm so glad you're on board. We've got Harsh on board. I got all my Richmond folks on board. I am loving this. All right, guys. And I am streaming to my YouTube channel tonight as well. I've been doing that for a while, and I always like to mention it because I know there's some folks out there who aren't really big on using Facebook, or they have a tough time finding my live feed there. So I am under Cosi Talks in my YouTube channel. And I've been posting a lot of videos there lately. Hey, Sandra, we got Johnny B in the house. Johnny is getting ready to embark on a skiing adventure. So I cannot wait to see those pictures and see how it's going for him there. So guys, lots of you came to the morning show. I was so excited to see so many folks there this morning. For those of you who aren't aware, I have started a morning live talk show on Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And I am featuring exercises from my new Strong Body program. Compadre, what's going on, man? So guys, every Wednesday I have an amputee model come to the Cosi Talk studio. And actually it's been so beautiful. We've been filming outside in my yard. And we feature one exercise from the program. And I'm actually going to grab my book to show you guys the program, the exercise that we were featuring this morning. And what I really like about this morning in the morning program is I'm able to just really focus in on the exercise and just really break it down PT style, right? Cosi Talk style. And in the evening, get to talk to you about a bunch of other stuff. Hey, Chuck. Oh, I'm excited about today's too. Hey, Bill, thank you for joining in. Woo. Eric says, wearing out my liners on number 17 in 1 year? What? What are you doing, Eric? Are you like gnawing on your liners? What's going on, man? 17 liners in 1 year? I don't think I've ever heard that before. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you joining me for the first time, welcome. Happy Wednesday, Line. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm a physical therapist, amputee specialist here in Tampa, Florida. I am the proud owner of Palanca, which is my outpatient physical therapy clinic that is exclusively for working with amputees. And I am also the proud owner of the Strong Body program. And y'all know I got to give my program a plug here. I'm actually going to share the screen in a few minutes to show you my new program. So for those of you who do not know, I have a brand new online exercise video program with over 150 exercises for above the knee and below the knee amputees. There is the handy dandy link that you can right click to get to that. And there is an accompanying book. Right now, the below the knee book is available. Also on the website, above the knee book coming soon. I promise. Hey, Trent, thanks for joining in. Oh, Barbara, there's Barbara with her beautiful emojis that she always puts up there for me. I love it. All right. Hey, we got Tim on board. I'm seeing a lot of names here tonight, guys. Really loving this. So guys, let's get started with the questions. It's been a few weeks, like with the Christmas holiday and everything, and announcing my sponsors last week and all this kind of good stuff, to be able to just answer your questions. And you guys finally started sending me some more this week. excited about that. I always love when you guys send me questions. So we're actually going to do a follow-up, okay, on a sound off situation from last week. And I say that because I really was sounding off. It takes a lot to push my buttons to the point where I get like really upset about a situation. And this situation, yeah, it pushed a lot of those buttons. Hey, Tom. Oh, man, enjoy chasing those snowflakes. And Tom, I would encourage you to come to listen to the adjustable socket talk. It's meant to be for active individuals, Tom. So I'm just following up on your comment from last week. Okay, so anyways, last week, one of my viewers sent me an email saying that he had gone to get fit for a new socket, right? And it wasn't his first socket. He's been an amputee, right? And the new check socket was not fitting well, right? It was causing chafing on his skin. It was uncomfortable. Like it had a bunch of red flags on it already. And the prosthetist basically finalized the socket, gave it to my viewer and said, here, you need to sign this paper here to basically sign off for it. So my patient, or not, it wasn't my patient, excuse me, my viewer just was like, okay, I'll sign off. Not realizing that when he signed off, that means the prosthetist now is released of responsibility for that socket. So obviously I have a lot of problems with that. and I know there were many of the prosthetists in the community who were watching my show last week, and they chimed in as well saying, this is unacceptable, guys. Basically the prosthetist had the patient sign off on a socket that was just no good. And now the patient couldn't do anything about it, right? Once you sign off for something, you're stuck with it, whether it's a socket, a foot, a knee, liners, socks, whatever, right? You're stuck with it. Now, we've talked on the show briefly on how many manufacturers have a return policy, right? There are some manufacturers that if you're not happy with the foot after using it for X amount of days, I don't know if it's 30 days, depending on the manufacturer, you do have the ability to return the foot, okay? And this is where I always tell people, be your own best advocate and be an informed consumer. When you're getting a new product, whether it's something as simple as socks or something more complicated like a new microprocessor knee, right? Read the manual that comes with it. Ask your prosthetist to give you the manual so that you can learn about the return policy and just learn about these things. This is really expensive equipment, guys, right? So you want to know what your rights as a patient and as a consumer are, right? So getting back to this viewer's story, he basically said, what am I supposed to do now? This leg doesn't fit me. And my prosthetist has essentially washed his hands of the situation. So my viewer took it upon himself to report it to his insurance company, which in my professional opinion, I think that was the smart move to do, because you need to show that this was not a socket that you agreed with, right? And I advised him to go find another prosthetist. This was, and I said this on last week's show, and I'm going to repeat this again on this week's show. 99% of clinicians out there are good people. 99% of the PTs, OTs, prosthetists, doctors, surgeons, nurses, they went into the field of healthcare to help people. Okay. And they're generally good people. Unfortunately, that 1%, right? And you can see like, this was really pushing my buttons. There is a 1% out there that they're not going to play very ethically. Okay. So this is where learning what your rights are as a patient is really important, especially for those of you who already have had an experience getting that first socket and knowing what a leg should feel like. Okay. So if you find that the clinic you're with is not working with you, you need to start squeaking that wheel and asking some questions. So this viewer sent me a follow-up email and explained, and he said, this is what ended up happening. So he reported it to his insurance company, and then he followed up with his prosthetist supervisor. And they made an arrangement where the prosthetist basically was going to take the leg back, and my viewer is simply going to go find another prosthetist, and he was refunded his money. So it's not an ideal situation, because now my viewer is, doesn't have a leg, but not that that other leg was helping him anyways, because it was tearing up his skin. But he since then has found a new prosthetist clinic. We were able to connect him with a really good prosthetist nearby him, who is going to make him a better socket. So it's a lousy situation that he had to experience this, but the silver lining that came out of it is that now he has a prosthetist that's going to do good by him. Okay. Thomas says, I've had to report a clinic to their national VP of clinical for doing something similar. Unfortunately, people are reluctant to believe it. And instead of putting the patient in the awkward position of tattling, I got video and sent it to that VP. Thanks for pointing out that we hate this as well. And again, guys, this is not a me bashing a prosthetist. No, because let me tell you, there are some PTs out there that I've seen how they operate, and I'm like, right? Okay. But like I said, 99% of clinicians, we're good people. And I kind of want to lump myself in that 99%. We're good people. We want to help our patients. We want to do well. And we are doing our best to navigate our healthcare system, the good, the bad, and the ugly parts about it, to do well for our patients. Okay. And again, I don't blame this particular viewer, because you want to trust your prosthetist. You want to trust that when, they're telling you to do something, that it's in your best interest, right? So I'm really glad that this particular viewer got the courage to do this and to say, no, this isn't right, and I am going to speak up, right? And I know I've got some clinicians watching me here, besides that Thomas, I know, is a prosthetist out west. And so many of you mentioned to me, like, yeah, this is not right. This is not how it works. This is not how we do it with our own patients, right? So guys, just store that nugget in the back of your head. Number one, before you sign off on anything, okay, just check everything, just check to make sure, is this socket really fitting me the way I want it to fit? Is this really the foot I'm looking for, the knee I'm looking for? And what is the return policy? Okay, what is the return policy that the manufacturer has? Have your prosthetist explain it to you, or go straight to the manufacturer. You can look up the manufacturer online and look at their website and just see what is their return policy, right? Just inform yourself, right? Being an informed consumer, okay? And then to kind of piggyback on that, I was having a conversation today with a friend of mine, and she is an amputee herself, and she is in the process of getting her socket redone. And this is one that I'm just like, ooh, I want to mention this. And I asked her, and I said, okay, so have you been trying the check socket out at home? And she said, no, they won't let me take the check socket home. So here's one of those like kind of gray areas, but I like to say it just so you can have this conversation with your prosthetist. If this is your second socket, third socket, right? Ask your prosthetist if they can reinforce the bottom of it and let you take the check socket home to trial it out for a couple of days, okay? With basically, and of course I don't have an example with me here. With the patients that I see in my clinic and my local prosthetists, they get casting material, that material that you use to make a cast with, right? When somebody breaks a bone, they take that material and they reinforce the bottom of the check socket. That's to prevent it from cracking, right? Because those check sockets are not made with the strong material that your regular socket, your final socket, is made with, right? So they reinforce the bottom of that check socket to make sure it's not going to break. And then they usually will allow you to take it home for a day or two just to trial it at home, okay? And I like it because then my patients will come see me in my clinic. We'll put them through their physical therapy treatment regimen, okay? And it really tests that check socket out. It really helps us see, okay, this socket, yes, it's comfortable. You're able to do all the movements. You're able to do your exercises and walking and this and that and the other. Or, this socket keeps pinching me in this area, or I keep feeling pressure in that area. We need to adjust that, right? Because we all know once that final socket is made, bets are off right there, okay? You're right, Eric. A lot of PTs are not familiar with how to help above knee patients, but we are getting out there, okay? Well, again, guys, you're going to sign off on a prosthesis, especially those of you who are receiving your prosthesis for the first time. It's a learning curve, right? It's a learning curve. And this is where a prosthetist who communicates with you, a prosthetist who walks you through the process, bad pun, sorry, is worth their weight in gold. Okay. And for those of you who have access to a physical therapist who's working with you and also communicating with your prosthetist, that is also incredibly valuable, because there are things, for example, that I will see in my clinic with my patients, okay, that will show up, right, just in the course of treatment, that I can then communicate to the prosthetist later on. Okay. And again, guys, this is about becoming an informed consumer. It's also about becoming an informed amputee. You're going to be an amputee for the rest of your life. Master of the obvious, I know. So the more that you empower yourself with this knowledge and education, the better your outcomes will be. And yeah, you're going to make mistakes along the way. There's going to be stumbles, right? It might be a small mistake like putting on the wrong sock, or it could be a big mistake like, ooh, this clinic perhaps is not the best fit for me. I need to go find another clinic. Yeah? Okay. So I'd love to hear if there's any more prosthetists on board this evening. I would love to hear your thoughts on this and just see how you approach these situations and what advice you might have to give for the folks listening on board. All right, so that's that situation. I'm going to take a sip and figure out which one's the next. Here's a good one. Okay. So I got tagged on this question on one of the support groups, which, by the way, guys, I love it when you guys tag me in your support groups. So because I belong to a lot of the Facebook support groups, I can't go through all of them and answer the questions that I want to answer. So if there's a great question that someone in your support group is answering or asking, tag me on it. I really like doing that because I really like being able to answer those questions. Ashley says, wait, some prosthetists don't let people take the check socket home. Mine has let me wear the test socket for weeks at a time just to ensure we get it just right. Yeah, I know, Ashley. Like the prosthetists in my area, they're super cool. They reinforce that check socket and they let patients take them home. And yeah, I have one prosthetist that his philosophy is let the patient stay in that check socket as long as they need to, especially if their limb volume is going up and down all over the place. He goes, because I want to make sure we get this socket right. Now, there are some prosthetists who are reluctant to send a patient home with a check socket because they're concerned that the check socket could possibly break or crack or whatever. I've never seen that happen on a patient when they've reinforced that check socket with the casting material. But again, that's the comfort level of each prosthetist. And again, this is where I would encourage you to have that conversation with your prosthetist to see if they can do that for you. Okay. Bill says, my CP made me take my check socket home for a week. You see, I did for different weeks to be sure he could make before he made my final socket. Yeah. Thomas, he's our prosthetist, and he's saying, also, these stories are so valuable. Patients are not in a state of mind to hear, be a smart consumer when they feel they need to trust the system. It's okay to challenge me as a prosthetist. In fact, it's unfair to silently think it will be better when one of my favorite parts is quick fixes. Thomas, you crack me up. So guys, you got it there from the horse's mouth, right? We have a prosthetist here saying, guys, you're supposed to ask us these questions, okay? And the same goes for me as I put myself in that same, I hold myself to that same standard. I expect my patients to ask me questions, okay? I have patients who will say to me, Cosi, I'm not progressing as fast as I want to. I thought I would be walking in X amount of time, okay? You're supposed to ask us these questions, and we're supposed to be able to answer you, okay? If we can't give you answers to these questions, then, right? Okay. Eric says, my check socket made everything better, even though I cracked mine. Yeah, you got to be careful with that. And I do know, like, whenever I do get a check socket in my office that the prosthetist wants me to test out, you know, I do kind of call the prosthetist and be like, so anything I should avoid doing with this particular check socket? No running, no crazy high impact activities. But yes, it's putting a patient through the moves of their daily life, walking different, maybe taking a step just to see how that socket feels. Let's see. Philip says, I've been in check sockets for 15 plus months and I'm on my 6th one, getting closer to a winner. Holy smokes, Philip. I can only imagine this means you're probably just changing a lot in your limb volume. Theo Rue says, what is normal time allotted for the return of a socket and knee? That I see it's all over the place. Thomas, I'm going to pick on you a little bit more this evening. What is your typical turnaround from a patient being cast for their check socket, and how long does it take you to put a socket and leg together? So it all depends. You know, if it's a smaller clinic with one prosthetist, then and they're making the socket themselves, obviously. So it's going to take a little bit of time. And you're waiting for parts to come in. Are you waiting for a foot to come in? What's going on? So it can take anywhere from, I've seen 3 weeks to a couple months, just depending again on the clinic, what changes are being made. If your limb volume is changing a lot, then the process is going to be prolonged a little bit more. Okay. Make sense? All right. Good conversations tonight, guys. Good comments. Okay. So this particular, question that I was tagged on in the support group said, do all double leg amputees start with stubbies? And this is a question I like to answer a lot. It's not the first time I've answered it, but I always like to cover it because this is something that, again, not everybody does this. And I think it's a very important step in the rehab process when you are a bilateral above the knee amputee. Okay. So this does not, let me just start it off with this. This does not apply to bilateral below the knee. Oops, bilateral below the knee. Here's Bob. He's been hanging out quietly, thinking I don't. Oh, just lost a hand. Sorry, Bob. Okay, so for my bilateral above the knee amputees, I think it's an incredibly valuable tool to be fit for stubby feet and sockets prior to learning how to walk with a full length prosthesis. And I'm going to have one shipped in pretty soon because I love Stubbies. So I'm going to have College Park send me one. So stubby feet are basically, it looks like a little square foot, depending on who makes it. So I personally love the one that College Park makes. It's a little bit bigger. It's got a nice tread, like rubber tread on the bottom of it, so there's no slipping. And it's a multi-axial. So it has actually a little bit of movement. Okay. So that little foot, that little goat foot is sometimes what they call it, goes right on the bottom of the socket. There's no pylon, right? It just goes right on the bottom of the socket, okay? And then the bilateral above the knee amputee will start to learn how to balance on just the socket and the stubby feet, okay? And the reason for that is because obviously if you have a bilateral above the knee and you immediately put them into full length legs, holy cow, that's a scary process. That's like standing on 2 6-foot stilts, right? Can be a little bit scary, okay? So in putting a person in stubbies, you're helping them start to reestablish their center of gravity, their balance. They start to work their core, okay? And they start learning how to move and do their weight shifting and do a little bit of walking in those stubbies, right? Before progressing to the full length ones. And here's the other part I like about stubbies, okay? After a person progresses and graduates to wearing full length legs, I recommend that they keep their stubby feet and sockets, okay? The reason is because it's sometimes a little bit easier to maneuver in those stubby sockets. So some of my bilateral amputees, my favorite one that I can think of right now, Jeffrey, he does a lot of his moving around in his home in his stubby sockets because it's just a little bit easier for him to move around his home with those stubby sockets. Or in his case, which is one of my favorite videos that he posted, he likes to mow his lawn using the stubby sockets. Why? Because it's easier to keep your balance in grass, okay, and pushing a heavy lawnmower when you're using stubbies, okay? So those can be used later on, even after you learn how to walk in full length stubbies, yeah? And then as a side note, stubbies are not just for bilateral amputees anymore, okay? So a lot of here in Florida, water is a year-round sport. We go to the beach all year round, I know. Kind of a cool thing about living here. Okay, so I like the stubby feet because it's something that can be made and integrated into a beach leg, a pool leg, or a shower leg, right? It's a great little foot there. Okay, so let's see. A couple more comments came in. Let me just make sure I can get this. Eric says, I'm on my third socket in 1 year based on how my limb shrank. And that's a very common thing. Hey, Daniel, glad you could join us. Let's see. Marianne says, I could walk unassisted with Stubbies until I could just not wear them anymore due to terrible fit. And again, Marianne, this is one of those things where I know you are working on things right now, but don't throw those Stubbies away, right? Hang on to them, because sometime down the line, you might want to have them refit you for those sockets, right? And just, use them for different occasions. The same way that we change our footwear for different occasions. We'll wear a pair of high heels to go out to a nice dinner, but we'll wear our flat sandals to be around our home, or wear sneakers when we're going to be walking a lot. My bilateral amputees will definitely tend to change it up a lot more according to their needs for that day. Let's see, Thomas, my prosthetist here, says, I use Scotch cast custom limb protector to function like a socket to be used with exercises during the weeks of healing. The desensitization gets front loaded. Plus I sent a bathroom scale so the patient sees what the comfort level is at different pressures. There we go. I like that. It has shortened the wearing time of the check socket to 3 days or so. That's really cool. I like that approach. All right. Next one. I like this one. Hang on. This question came to me. Please hold. This one came to my okay, here we go. This patient said, I keep saying patient. You guys are not my patients, you're my viewers. Sorry, it's been a long day. All right, this viewer says, my PT tells me that I just have to learn standing balance, and that will help my walking balance. So he has me just stand between the bars and try not to lean forward or back. I definitely have a lot of trouble with that. Is that a good exercise, or is there something better? Yeah, there's something better. And again, all due respect to my fellow PTs, there are some PTs that they simply have not had the experience in working with amputees, and it's a little bit different. So I am going to shamelessly plug my book right now. Okay, because it's got one of my favorite beginner balance exercises. And this is one that I give to my below the knee, above the knee, and my bilaterals. Okay, it's the weight shifting from side to side. Those of you who bought the book, it's on pages 92, 93, 94. Okay. And to the viewer who sent me this question, you can find this in the phase 1 balance exercises in the program, the video program, the Strong Body video program. Okay. So those are the weight shifting exercises. I know so this particular physical therapist was basically telling my viewer, okay, stand still and learn how to stand still without falling. Okay. But guys, the nature of how we move on a daily basis, we are very rarely just standing still. Okay. We're always constantly moving, whether we're sitting down or standing. We're constantly making little movements and little adjustments to our balance and how our weight shifts. So that's how we need to approach the rehab process and teaching ourselves the balance again. Oh, Bill, you ordered that book, then it's going to be going out tomorrow, buddy. Okay. So again, when you're starting to learn balance, you got to retrain your brain and start at the beginning, right? You got to put yourself into a very simplified position, standing in the parallel bars and holding on with 2 hands, right? And practice the weight shifting process, okay? So that your muscles start to wake up and they learn how to adjust according to your weight shifting, all right? So to the person who sent me that email, I know you're watching right now, go to the balance phase 1 in the Strong Body program, because I know you subscribe to the program, okay? And there you're going to find the weight shifting exercises, okay? Then this person said, that makes me feel like I can't do it, and I can't do it without hanging on. And my answer to that is, you're supposed to hang on when you're first trying out some of these balance exercises, guys. Again, you have to give your brain time to adjust. You have to give your brain to learn. You have to give your brain time to learn. Okay. So when you're doing these balance exercises, especially those of you who are unlearning bad habits or learning new good ones, okay, you are going to have to hold on, whether it's a parallel bars or 2 sturdy chairs or your kitchen countertop, as your body learns these new movements. Okay. Marianne says, I was told Medicare wouldn't give me new sockets for my stubbies. Don't really know why. Oh, you gotta love Medicare and insurance companies. So yeah, guys, and in some insurance companies, they won't cover a second set of sockets. Okay. So Marianne, a couple of things that you can try out is when it's time for you to get new sockets, okay, save your old ones, and hopefully as long as they're not creating any big problems with your skin, save your old socket and have your prosthetist put the stubby foot back on them, okay? And, just talk to your prosthetist and just see if they have a payment plan. Just see what they can do to work with you so that later on down the line, you can have these stubbies available to use as well. Hey, Stephen, glad you could join in. All right. Hey, Lisa, so good to see you. Thank you, sweetie. All right. Next question. We got... okay. So Denise was asking, and I'm really glad we got a prosthetist on board for this one. Denise was asking, what is the basic difference between a suction socket and a pin lock socket? Okay. Again, common question. A lot of times people get confused as to what suction socket and pin lock means. Okay. When we're talking about suction sockets and pin lock systems, we're talking about suspension. Okay. How the socket is held on to your residual limb. Okay. A lot of times folks will confuse suspension system with the shape of the socket. Okay. So the shape of the socket is exactly that. How is it shaped? Okay. Is it a quadrilateral? Okay. Is it an ischial containment? Is it a sub-ischial? Meaning at what level, okay, does that socket go? Okay. Pin lock and suction refers to the suspension, how the socket is kept on your limb. Pin lock is exactly that. There's a long pin at the end of your liner, and you plug it into the hole and you click, 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 and you click into the socket. Okay. Pretty simple system. It's a system that many folks are started with their first sockets, especially my older folks will start with a pin lock system. Okay. It's also a system that my amputee runners will use, okay, for their running prosthesis. All right. The suction system, it's exactly that, okay? You put your leg into the socket and you have a little valve, a one-way valve that's usually up towards the bottom of the socket, okay? As your leg goes in, air is expelled out of that valve. You push the valve and you guys like my sound effects? And the air goes out of the valve and it creates a negative pressure, okay? And it's basically that. It's just like... it suctions your leg into the socket, and that's how it's holding it in with negative pressure that's created. Okay. So pros and cons of both. Pin lock. It's a great starter system. Okay. Because all you got to do is aim for the little pin lock hole and down you go. Right. It's just a very simple system to create, simple system to fit, simple system to get started with. Okay. And a lot of my patients and a lot of my viewers will continue to use pin lock system for the rest of their life, and they love it. Wonderful. Okay. The benefits of the suction system, okay, is that it provides a more intimate, snug fit on your limb, okay? So a lot of times people will feel like the limb is more a part of them because, again, get it, it's like suction cupped onto your leg, right? So people will tell me that it feels lighter. Their prosthesis feels lighter using the suction system because it's just that much more snug on their leg, okay? So those are some of the benefits of the suction system. Some of the negative side effects. So with pin lock, you have the issue of what's called pistoning, right? So because there's no suction in a pin lock system, right? There's the potential for the limb to go in and out of that socket, and it creates a pistoning effect, which can have a negative effect on your soft tissue and can create problems down the line. Also, some folks have a lot of trouble with the pin lock and getting the little pin lock into the pinhole in the bottom of the socket. I can't tell you in the beginning, especially my beginning years as a new therapist, struggling to get a pin lock system on a patient. Okay. Okay. So sometimes for certain patients, it's just not the right system for them to be able to use. And again, guys, everyone is different in their needs. Everyone is different. There have been times where a patient has progressed and I talk to them and I say, okay, would you like to think about moving from a pin lock to a suction? And they're just like, no, 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 no. I like my pin lock. I like to hear those clicks. I like to know that my leg is staying on. Okay, that's what we do then. Okay. Van Gregory says, Cosi pin locks are more secure than suction suspension. The reasons runners prefer them for running blades. Absolutely. It depends also on the system, Van Gregory, because a lot of times for walking purposes, my runners do not like to use pin lock. They like to use a suction or an elevated vacuum suspension system for their walking leg. And then they have a running leg made. And then they use the pin lock for that. And usually, additionally, they also have to use a suspension sleeve to help control the rotation for running. So it depends. Again, it all depends on the situation. It all depends on your lifestyle and the needs that your life demands. All right. All right. Here's another. Ooh, let me see. Sorry, running through the questions. Quad talk. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of briefly go over this morning. So this morning's live show. Hey, Denise. Oh, good. You heard the answer. Yay. Okay. So guys, this morning's live talk show was about the quad muscle. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview, and then I'm going to encourage you to go watch this morning's talk show. It's on my YouTube channel. It's ready to go. Suzanne is there demonstrating the exercise. Go check it out. Okay. So basically your quad muscle, basic anatomy lesson, right? Starts from the hip area. It goes over the front of your thigh. It goes over your knee and attaches right below your kneecap, right here at the patellar tubercle, right? And it ends in what's called the patellar tendon, right? So the quad muscle is called that because it's made up of 4 muscles. So it's 4 slips of muscle that join together over the knee into a tendon, and it ends right here. So for those of you who are my below the knee patients, right? Sorry, I keep saying the word patients, guys. Those of you who are my below the knee viewers, okay, your quadriceps muscle is completely intact, right? That's one of the big advantages to being a below the knee compared to above the knee. You get to keep your knee joint, but you also get to keep that quadriceps muscle. Even those of you who are very short residual limb, your patellar tendon attaches right here, okay? So you get the benefit of having the full quadriceps muscle. Now, for my above the knee folks, you will have some of your quadriceps muscle left, okay? It's part of the residual muscles, and in some cases, it might get attached to the bone. Some cases, it might get attached to the hamstrings. It's there, okay? It's never going to contract, and it's not going to function the way it did prior to your amputation because your knee is no longer there, but it's still there, and there's still muscle fibers in your quad muscles, okay, that are firing off and working, okay? So the emphasis onto this morning's exercise was called the quad set, okay? And I'm going to look it up real quick in here so y'all can see a picture of it. But the quad set is the very first exercise that I give to all of my amputee patients when they are coming out of surgery. So when I worked in the hospitals and I worked in ICU and trauma units, this would be the very first exercise that I would give my patients. And here it is, quad sets right there. So in the book on, let's see, for those of you who bought the book, page 23 and 24, quad sets with prosthesis, quad sets without the prosthesis, okay? I'm not going to go into detail as to how to do the exercise. That's what this morning's video is for. You can watch Suzanne demonstrate this exercise. But some of the benefits of learning how to do this exercise, guys, those of you who are still kind of fresh out of your surgery, right, that you still have some swelling in your leg, doing this exercise and learning how to activate your quad is going to help with your swelling. It's going to help with your pain. That's why this was the first exercise I would do with all of my amputee patients as soon as I started working with them in their hospital rooms. All right, think about it. You've got that ginormous muscle on the front of your thigh. If you start contracting that muscle, it's going to help pump the swelling. And if you pump the swelling out, it's going to help alleviate some of that pain. Okay, and I described that a little bit more in detail in this morning's talk show. Okay, second thing. Okay, y'all have heard me talk about working your core and having a strong core, and that you have to start by strengthening the transverse abdominis muscle, that deep muscle in there, right? You have to start learning how to activate. Same thing with your quad muscle, guys. Your quadriceps does a lot of work. It helps with bringing your leg up, hip flexion. It helps with extending your knee. Okay. It has to work with your hamstrings behind your thigh, right? So your quadriceps do a lot of work. But if you're not firing on all cylinders, if you're not recruiting all those muscle fibers that are in your quadriceps muscle, okay, you're going to run into problems down the line. Okay. So even for my athletes, guys, and I always use the example, my wonderful model who modeled these exercises, okay, he is really in shape, right? He goes to the gym. He's got he's Mr. Muscles there, okay? But when we were doing this quad exercise, which is a very simple exercise to do, he struggled with it, okay? And the reason is when I asked him about it, he's like, I never received physical therapy after my amputation. So even though he can walk without a walker or a cane and he's going to the gym every day, he still has a lot of quad weakness. And if he didn't address it, he's addressing it now because I know I taught him that exercise. If he doesn't address it, then it's going to lead to injuries down the line. Okay, so go watch that video, guys. There's a lot more information on that video. Let's see. Theo says, I have a pin lock and I struggle with it. And again, if you do happen to have a pin lock system and you're struggling with it, take it back to your prosthetist. It could be that you need a little bit of a longer pin. Sometimes that you need a little longer pin so that you can get it into the pin lock a little bit easier. With some of you, this has happened in the past where it's stripped, so the pin has the little grooves around it, similar to a screwdriver or a screw. So sometimes if you're too aggressive, it'll strip the pin lock a little bit and you have to get that replaced. Okay. So just things to talk to your prosthetist about to make it a little bit easier for you to use. I have a question for you guys. And this is one of those like fun conversations I had with my patient the other day. So when I'm teaching my patients how to put their socks on, I'm kind of like OCD. Yeah, big surprise, I know. So I'm kind of OCD about it, and I have them put on one sock at a time and make sure that all the wrinkles are taken out of the sock. And I was chuckling about it the other day because my patient comes in and she's like, we don't have to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I still do it. So the reason is because back when, dinosaurs roamed the earth and I started practicing physical therapy, right? We didn't have the liners we have today. And those of you who are my old time folks, y'all can corroborate me on this one. But we didn't have those nice gel and silicone liners that go right on your skin, right? You actually put your socks directly onto your skin, and then you had this other kind of liner that went over it, right? So you had to put your socks on one at a time, stretch them out, make sure there were no wrinkles, because if there were any wrinkles in the sock, right, you could potentially get, breakdown of your skin, right? So obviously now with the new liners, the liners are a little bit thicker. And then Marianne just gave me a dinosaur emoji. I know I'm a dinosaur. But I just thought it was a really funny conversation to have. My patient just looked at me. She's like, we don't have to worry so much about the wrinkles. And I go, I know, but I still do it. It's just force of habit. It was trained into me. And I still teach my patients, no wrinkles in the socks. Put one sock on at a time. Make sure you stretch it out all the way. So I was just curious to see if anybody else out there is like OCD about putting their socks on, if that's like leftovers from when you wore sockets back in the 80s and 90s. So just one of those morbidly curious questions. Philip says, I've been using a lanyard setup, but I feel like I'm the one person who does. I feel like it's foolproof. What are your thoughts? Lanyards are good, Philip. And, you're not the only one. I don't see them as much, anymore as I used to. But when I do see them, and again, it's what are your needs? Some people in the very beginning, when they get their first socket, they need a very simple setup. Okay. And a lanyard system will do that. I have one patient right now. He is in a lanyard system, and I honestly don't see him ever having to change that. He is a point A to point B person. So he uses his prosthesis to move from one place to another in his house. He's not, terribly high mobility. So he doesn't need anything more fancy than a lanyard system, and it works great for him. And he likes it because I've taught him, how much to pull down the lanyard and how to measure to make sure that his limb has gone all the way down enough into the socket. So again, for him, that system works. That system works. Now, Philip, if you're someone who's a little bit more active, you've been getting more comfortable with your socket, more comfortable with moving around, walking around, then, I think it's worth exploring other options and just asking your prosthetist about different suspension systems just to see if it would be warranted in your case, especially if you're up for a change in socket at this point. Okay. So again, it all just starts with communication, guys, talking with your prosthetist, asking them these questions. Like Thomas said, you can challenge them just a little bit and ask them these questions. And just to see, what is the best option for you and how do your needs change, right, as time goes on, right? All right, guys, we're going to close up shop for the evening. I do want to say thank you, guys. We've got some really special shows planned for the rest of this year. I am currently furiously working hard to update my website so you guys can see everything that my sponsors have to offer. So keep checking back. You're going to see a lot of things on my website coming up in the next few weeks. If you haven't already done so, check out my Strong Body program. There's the exercise videos, there's the books. So many of you have been using the program and giving me your wonderful updates on how you're feeling stronger and feeling better with your balance from using these programs. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. So as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. And I will see you same bat time, same bat channel next week. God bless. Bye.